Good morning. My name is Sam Jones, and I am the 7th grade social studies teacher, and I'm going to tell you a little bit today about how I became a teacher. I was raised in a house that had 2 degrees in education. My dad has been a teacher for 44 years, and my mom has a degree in physical education and health, and just never decided to get into the classroom. And so from the time I was born, I was in the hallways of a school or in my dad's classroom. I can remember whenever I was younger, even like 4th and 5th grade, I would help my dad grade papers and enter grades into his grade book. And it was just always something that it seemed like that I was destined to be in a classroom, because it was really the only thing I knew at the time. I knew by the time I was in middle school that I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be around a school atmosphere. And I think it's because I was raised in that kind of environment. It was a second home. It was a place that was comfortable for me. And I was fortunate that, my parents pushed that education was important from a very early age. When I was in high school, I was very involved. I wasn't the greatest student, though. I think I graduated with a 2.9 GPA in high school, which really isn't that great when you look at going on to college and things like that. I thought that the locker was to hold my books, not for my stuff. It was to leave books there overnight because I didn't want to go home and study. What did shape me, though, in high school was that I was very involved. I wanted to be involved in everything. I was in student council. I was my class treasurer. I was in our leadership academy. I managed the basketball and volleyball teams whenever I wasn't playing sports. I played football for a year. I played baseball for 4 years. And I did a variety of other events like volunteering because of those different groups. And so that always seemed like, again, something that I was comfortable with. I wanted to be around others and help others, and use my leadership skills to hopefully benefit others. So by the time I got into college and everything, I still wanted to be involved. I went to Indiana State University, and in the process of doing that, I joined a fraternity. And I can remember my parents said that they were actually ashamed that I wanted to join a fraternity. So those of you who don't know that, it's a social group that is typically of either all males, or if you join a sorority, it's all females. But that was what shaped me to be a productive college student, because I was held accountable for my grades. If I didn't meet a certain GPA, I couldn't join. I couldn't participate in playing sports during college, or like in their intramurals, or I couldn't hold an office, so I couldn't do the things that I really wanted to do. So my first semester of my college career, I had a 2.43 GPA, and I went back to school, and it would have been like the first week of the second semester. About this time, my dad finally saw my grades and called me as I was on my way to class, and he said, if you get below a 3.0 the rest of the way out, you're coming home and you're not getting a degree. You're going to go to work, because he knew the value of the loans that I was taking out to go to school. He knew the value of how much time and effort my parents were having to put in to make sure that I could go to college, and to take care of things at home while I was away. And that really struck me, because it was like I had just made all these great friends. I had just started to establish myself as a young adult, and I really didn't want to lose those privileges. So from there on out, I really busted my tail, and it wasn't easy. It's not every subject is going to come easy to people. I found out very quickly I am terrible at anything that's science related. I feel pretty comfortable in math. English is a suspect at times, but at the same time, I found something I was comfortable with, and I thought, I'm going to do everything I can to continue to play to my strength, which was history, geography, and social studies in general. So while I was at Indiana State, I had something called work study, which means I could help pay off my college by working on campus somewhere. And so I decided to work in the athletic office. And in doing that, I worked for the athletic director as a student secretary for 3 years. That gave me some other connections. I became the manager of the baseball team for part of a season, and then I became the manager for the volleyball team, and eventually became what they call their student assistant coach. Those things within the athletic department and the and within the fraternity took me all over the United States. Took me to California, took me to Texas, took me to Nebraska. All these places that I wouldn't be able to say I've been to if I didn't go to college, or if I didn't look to be involved while I was there. And I learned, like, through this time, that if you want to change a culture, or if you want to do things to change because you don't like something, if you don't like something or the way things are going, you can't just sit on the sidelines and complain the entire time. You have to get into a leadership role. You have to do the work, and you have to use that opportunity to make a change for where you want to be. So then all of a sudden I graduate in December of 2010, and I could not find a teaching job. That was at the time that, they were not really hiring teachers at all. And so I worked multiple jobs. I worked at Dick's Sporting Goods. I worked as an instructional aide. I worked as a softball and baseball official. I mowed for the local high school that I lived near. And I was a substitute teacher for 4 years. Through that, I did all of those different jobs, just trying to make enough money to pay off student loans. My high school principal his name is Brad Tucker. It's Mrs. Tucker's brother. And one morning, on a day I wasn't subbing, it was probably 10 a.m. and I was still sleeping. I get a phone call from my principal saying, "Hey, my sister needs a social studies teacher, and you need to apply." So I applied, and sure enough, I go up. I have my interview with Mrs. Tucker, Mrs. Ames, Mrs. Glazer. And I can remember a couple days later, I was substitute teaching in a high school choir class when I got my phone call. And it was one of the happiest moments of my life, because I was finally given an opportunity to do things. I had been through probably a dozen interviews trying to find a place to call home, and I hadn't been successful. And so I am so thankful to have the opportunity I do now. You are going to fail at some point. You are going to run into obstacles left and right. That doesn't define your characters when you run into these failures. It's what you do after you've overcome that obstacle. How do you take advantage of that opportunity you've been given? And I think I've been fortunate enough, and I've been blessed to give the opportunity to be here at Cloverdale. And it really is a great community, and you guys are very lucky to live and go to school where you are. So thank you for listening in. Hopefully you learned something about me.